Hello and welcome everybody who is joining our webinar, Everything New with Weel Visa Debit Cards. We're super excited for this session today. We've had a heap of you register. It does usually take a few minutes for everyone to trickle in. So we'll hold off for a little bit until we've seen everyone join. But a big welcome from Jake and myself, and maybe to kick us off, has anyone got anything really exciting planned for the weekend? If you can drop it in the chat, let me know. Any lucky people got tickets to the big concert in Sydney with Taylor Swift, or any big plans before things get hectic with Easter? Seeing a few familiar names. Cool. I'll just wait another 30 seconds. Zoom can be a bit slow letting people in, but still seeing some people trickle in. Cool. Okay, we might take it away. So welcome to the webinar. So everything that is new with Weel Visa Debit Cards. Before we jump into things, we do have a little bit of housekeeping today. So we have got the, yeah, so we have got the Q&A function down the bottom. You'll see to drop any questions that you have into the chat. I know we asked for any questions ahead of time too, and some of you got back to us, which was awesome. But as we're talking through anything today, that's the best place to have a question answered, because we do tend to lose them when they're popped into the chat. And the second piece is that this session will be recorded and shared with you today. So if you, need to duck and grab a glass of water or whatever in the middle, we will be recording everything for you to rewatch later or share with your team. I did maybe jump the slides out of order, but today you are being hosted by myself. So I'm a product marketing manager here at Weel, and I'm joined by Jake, who I'm sure some of you have probably met in your journey with Weel. He's one of our wonderful account executives here, who's probably been instrumental in onboarding a lot of you, and is super excited to talk to you about everything that is new with our Visa debit switch today. So look, it's been something that we've been really excited to bring to our customers, and we've been working on this for a really long time behind the scenes. I know myself, when I was first briefed in on this project, I actually thought, oh, cool, yeah, we're going to flip a switch and we'll be moved over to Visa Business Debit Cards. It'll be super easy. We'll be done overnight. It'll be a really seamless project. Of course, the reality was actually far from that. And, we've compared it internally to trying to change out and rebuild the engine of an aeroplane while we're still flying in the air. So to continue with this analogy, we know that this transition was not without turbulence. And as much as we sort of tried to plan for every scenario, there was just some things that we couldn't have unfortunately predicted until we got there. So right at the top of this webinar, we just want to thank you all for your patience, your perseverance, and your trust as we made this switch. And the good news is that today we're going to be talking through not only what's new and that we've unlocked today through switching to this new payment provider, but also touching on some of the exciting stuff that we're going to be able to deliver to you in the future. Cool. So before we dive in though, I've just got a quick poll to see how many people remembered from the many emails that we sent. We've talked about this change enabling a new FX rate for Weel. Does anybody know or remember what that FX rate is from the comms that we've sent out? We'll see how many people get this right. Give it a few more seconds. Cool. No idea. Cool. So look, I know these percentages. Have we got an answer up on the screen? Sorry, I can't see my screen. Did we answer the poll? Did we share that? Who was the poll people? No? Okay. Well, it didn't get shared, so I can't see the answer. Oh, there we go. Okay. So 41% of you got that right. It is 0.95%. So I know these can seem a little bit abstract. I'm not really a numbers girl myself. So I actually had to do a bit of maths here to understand what this means in practice. So to put some numbers behind this, if you are, for example, putting through $10,000, 10,000 US dollars a month in subscription payments, for example, which is easy to do if you've got a lot of subscriptions or if you've got a lot of software sitting behind your business. A lot of these are processed in USD. Compared to the previous rate that we were able to offer with our previous provider and similar to what most banks are able to offer, the new rate is actually saving you 300 Aussie dollars each month or $3,600 across the year. So that 0.95% is actually quite a significant drop on the 2.99% that we were able to previously do. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So one more. Thank you. So this was the first sort of piece that behind why we wanted to make this move, is that we really just wanted to be able to offer a more competitive FX rate to all of our customers. So whether you've got staff that are maybe traveling frequently and needing to pay in other currencies, or maybe you've just got a lot of FX purchases you need to put through that are paid in non-AUD, this is just going to help bring down the cost from an FX perspective and deliver more savings there. The second piece was that we really wanted to move over to debit cards, and our payment provider enabled us to do that. So previously with our prepaid cards, some of you may have come up against the frustration of not being able to set up your Google subscriptions or Facebook or LinkedIn. Uber was another one. With this switch to the Visa Business Debit cards, all of these payments are now possible with Weel cards, so that you can now manage even more of your spending through Weel, which is obviously an important part of getting that full picture and transparency over your spending. And then the last benefit, as I kind of spoke to at the top, is these were kind of what we were able to unlock immediately from the move over. But, you know, a huge part of this as well is that it's providing this really great foundation for us to be able to deliver things in the future that weren't possible with our previous provider. So I know one thing that's front of mind for a lot of people is physical cards. This was something that came through in our questionnaire that we sent out beforehand, is when is physical cards coming? And the good news is it's very, very close. We're looking at early next quarter. So we've got most of the pieces in place ready to go. We're just working with the delivery partner right now to sort of flesh out the last bits and pieces. So keep an eye out for an update on that very shortly. But look, it's also going to mean things like being able to pay bills in foreign currencies, being able to hold multi-currency wallets. These are all things that are now possible, as well as many other things in the future as we keep listening to your feedback and listening to requests around what's going to help you better manage spend across your business. So look, lots of exciting pieces there coming. That's a lot from me. So I'm now going to hand over to the man of the hour, which is Jake, who's going to take you through exactly what's new, where you can find things, and then answer some of your questions as well. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, Katie. Hey, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to catch up here, and saw a few familiar names in the chat. So hopefully, you're loving Weel and happy to see me. Look, I wanted to start just with a quick poll about our subscription tool. It's something that isn't new, but something you may have not been utilizing fully at the moment. So really keen to just understand who knows about this tool, who's using it, how you're using it at a high level. It'd be really good to get a gauge of that. And then I'm going to jump in to show you kind of the best practice use of it. So if you could jump in and answer that, that'd be awesome. Too good. Looks like that poll's done and answers are in. So 17% all subscriptions are managed through Weel. 46% there's a few subscriptions I manage separately, and 37% no, I haven't set anything up. So look, that's actually really helpful to know, and I was kind of expecting along those lines for a number of reasons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start jump in and show you through how to use this tool in the best way and the kind of thought processes behind it. As well as I'm going to jump in and show you another section of Weel that we launched in that you may not have even seen, which is the new cards management front, and kind of guide you through another few things. So if I seem a bit awkward while I'm doing this, I'm used to a bit of engagement. So I'm going to pretend that you guys are all loving everything I'm saying just to boost my ego as I go through. But yeah, feel free to chuck any questions into the chat as I do this, and happy to cover this off a bit more at the end. So the section that I'm in at the moment is our subscription card section, and it seems like some of you may not have even ever seen this or known this exists. So to start with the basis of why this tool exists, I guess a common thing I hear in my role is that traditionally all the subscriptions in a lot of businesses would just be put on the director's card. And look, that works well, especially if the director's earning points on every dollar, they're loving that. But what they're not loving is that I guess people put subscriptions on their card and leave the business, and then they're sometimes unable to even cancel these subscriptions because the subscription isn't in their name. You know, there's a risk of fraud. The more people that have access to your card details, the more likely there is for internal or external fraud to happen. And then look, ultimately, if that fraud does happen, you've got to cancel that card, get a new card, and figure out everything you're paying for again. And sometimes you don't even figure out you've missed something until you get a bounce back or a software just stops working. So the core idea of this tool is really to allow you in this, as you can see here, to split things out separately, you know, assign the ownership to the relevant staff member, put a limit on it to reduce the risk of fraud, and ideally have real visibility of everything you're paying for on a recurring basis, and a number of other things that I'll show you through. And also, you know, I guess what I commonly see and why many of you are potentially not using this is some people have their subscription set up on budget cards. Look, that's okay. It's not as itemized as you'd have by using the subscription tool. And also then people's budgets are getting eaten into by recurring costs that are separate to the budget costs. The other reason why a lot of businesses would not be using this, and it's in line with our recent switch, you can see things like Google here. So in the past, some subscriptions like Google were not accepted on our old prepaid cards, and that's a key kind of driver of why we've moved to debit, is so that all these online payments will be accepted. And now's a really good time to maybe jump in and start using this tool the way it's designed. And what I'll do now is to show you an example of how we issue some cards and some cool features within this that you may or may not be aware of. And as I say, I'm really sorry for the 17% or so of you that is using this for everything, but it seems like a lot of you are, and hopefully you find something valuable from this showcase. So what do I do to set up a new subscription card? An example that I would give, and this is where you can get a lot more, I guess, control and automation. I have a staff member loaded into my system called James, and let's say James needs to set up LinkedIn Premium so that he can start, you know, researching more in line with his role. Just an easy example, and something where traditionally maybe James's subscription would be done via reimbursement on his budget card or on the director's card. So what I could do is I could just quickly name it James LinkedIn Premium. I assign who I'm giving the card to, so James. I can create an auto code rule, so every time it's debited, this is the category or chart of account it's assigned to. I can then set a limit, like whether it's a monthly or an annual bill, and put a limit in line with what is expected to reduce that risk of fraud. I'm going to say it's $100 a month. So what happens when I create this card? That card is issued, and there's a subscription section within the app. I might even just jump in and show you that if needed. But what's happened is this is a card that's been issued purely for online use. It cannot be used for tap and pay payments via Google and Apple Pay. And essentially, James can then jump in and apply that card on the subscription. But you as an admin can now track this and I guess make sure that only that is coming off. Also, if James is not using his subscription properly or you want to cancel it for any reason, I can freeze this card here, and that subscription is essentially cancelled, or the billing method is paused without impacting anything else. And so things like that can be quite handy for a number of cases that commonly pop up with these subscriptions. And the end goal is it becomes a much more official and automated way as to when people are setting these up. And essentially, the other things to think about with these is, reassigning ownership. So with this particular Atlassian subscription, as you can see here, it tracks what purchases are coming off it. If Mark leaves the business, but we want to keep Atlassian going, I can come in and reassign the ownership of this subscription to someone else. And that card will keep going. They'll have the details. They'll be chased up for the invoices that they can upload through the app, and things can keep rolling. So I guess I hope that is like a refresher and update of like how to use this tool and the thought process behind why businesses do use it. And the other thing to keep in mind on the note of Katie's comment about our FX rate is, along with acceptance on common subscription types like Google and say Facebook, we also have an improved FX rate of 0.95%. So if you do have these foreign subscriptions, in a lot of cases, our FX rate is better than you'll be getting through your bank. So you'll actually be saving money by putting as many subscriptions under here as you can. So I've just answered this one for you, Robert. So it does have a card number. And what I might even do, hopefully I'm logged in and I can show you. So how does this appear in the app? So you have your budget cards in the same way as before. There is a new subscription section. So if you have a subscription card, you'll see it here. And then in the same way as any other card, you see the card details through the app. If I click that, it's going to get me to verify. But this is where you'll access the card numbers, including the CVC, and they can apply that. And the other thing to keep in mind, the other beauty of this is whoever is that subscription holder is the person that gets reminded for the invoice in the same way through our app when it gets debited. So they can upload that and finish the coding too. And will that be a budget amount? That's a really good other question on the FX. So when you are issuing cards for say US dollars, it would be a good idea to put a buffer for changes in FX rate, and the same with any cards. So these cards will currently be in Aussie dollar. So as I say, definitely a good idea to have a buffer there for future FX changes. And also, I guess something coming in the future will be the ability to store and spend in other currencies too, coming down the track, which this new card issuer has unlocked for us. So yeah, that's a subscription tool in a nutshell, and feel free to send any other questions through. Happy to cover it off. The other thing I just wanted to show you through, which is another function that many of you may not have even noticed came in, is our new card management section. So a thing that I would commonly hear about even in my role was people might have multiple budgets assigned to people as well as subscription cards, and they, via the traditional way of looking through the budget and the tool, it's really hard to see what cards people had, what their limits were, and all these sorts of stuff. So this was built in to give you that greater control. So for example, you can see here for James, I can click in and see all of the budgets and cards he is assigned. And essentially, this is the easy quick snapshot of all of the various cards people are assigned. They can do it both at a user and a budget level. So yeah, quite a handy feature that you may not have seen. And in line with that, another thing that I'm commonly hearing about is about what is the difference between a primary and a secondary card. So I guess this is something that goes along with, particularly if you're assigning people multiple budgets and subscriptions. What does this mean? So primary card is the section that so the primary card is the card that the staff member can that is linked to their Google and Apple Pay. So what does this mean? This is the card that is default for in-store payments, and also this can be changed. If they change what their active budget is in the wallet, this would change what their primary card is. What does the secondary card mean? this is the card details for the separately linked budget that they can access through the app or the separate subscription card. So the secondary card is really referring to online payment methods other than the primary card. So I guess that in a nutshell is how the card management works, how the subscription tool works, and really the new kind of functionality that's live in the system now. Something to keep in mind, and a common request I commonly see is I want to be able to view card details through the web, particularly for subscriptions. And look, right now this isn't available, but through this page, this will be available to view your online card methods and to confirm only your own. You won't be able to see other people's. So, that's a bit of a security risk that you might think about. It's only your own and just is sometimes a bit easier than accessing it through the app. And also there's going to be the ability to order physical cards when they come through here, all these cool things that are coming. But really, that's kind of what is live right now. And so I just got a question through from Jade about why is there a primary and secondary card for the one budget? So I guess the easiest way I can hopefully eloquate the difference between primary and secondary cards. So like the primary card is the one that is linked here that will have a green tick used in Apple Wallet. So that is the primary card for physical in-store payments. The secondary card is the online card for the separate card details. So the in-store and the online card details are slightly different. So that is what the difference between primary and secondary is.
And sorry, Jake, I'm going to jump in, just add to that as well. This is kind of setting up the concept for when we do have physical cards also. So when you have your physical card, and we will do a separate webinar around this too, it's the concept of like you have your primary card that is active at that moment, that you can link different budgets to. So even though you will have a physical card with a number, the budget that it draws from will be the budget that's selected at any one point in time. And you will be able to swap the budgets as well, whether it's your physical card or your virtual card in your wallet that you're tapping and going with. You will be able to swap the budget. So that's your primary, whatever budget is active in your tap and go, I guess, or your physical card is your primary card at that point in time. The secondary one is the online details, which will always stay related to that budget that you might use to put in, say, if you've got a Woolies card, Woolies budget, for example, and you're putting in online orders, that will stay the same, always be that secondary piece there.
Yeah. So look, that's really like the key new functions. Thanks for that extra context there as well, Katie. It's great to see all these questions coming through, and look like I can see one that I might defer to CC, my colleague from Emma. But since I'm in here, Megan, I see a question about how does reimbursements work in Weel. I think there's no harm in me just jumping through and showing that quickly. It'll only take a few moments, just steer across it, and then might just jump into general Q&A. So how does reimbursements within Weel work? The most important thing firstly is to think about the payment types. So if you want someone to be able to do reimbursements, ensure they have a reimbursement payment type method applied to their profile. That's going to allow them to do it. You also need to have them assigned to a budget of some sort. But then how does it work for them to submit their reimbursement? They will jump in through our app, go to this reimburse section. The first time they go to do it, they enter their bank details that gets stored against their user profile. And then they can just upload their receipt, details of the expense in line with how you've configured Weel, and submit it through. Once they do, the approver gets an alert. They can also approve through the app reimbursements or through the web. Once that reimbursement gets approved, they get reimbursed within the hour, the staff member, to their bank account, and you'll see this transaction within your transaction table under the reimbursement payment method, and we will send that information into Xero. So at a high level, that's how that all works. So look, I'll jump out now, and it sounds like it's a good time to go to general Q&A, but thanks for all the engagement, everyone.
Thank you, Jake. So now we're going to start grilling you. I know we've had a lot of questions come through in our chat function. If you do have any questions, further questions, drop them into the Q&A just as it's a bit easier to keep track of the question and answer because we can bundle them together. But what we might do now is we do have one in the Q&A that I'll ask you, Jake. So Hannah's asked, can the cards in your Apple Wallet be used overseas, such as a trip to NZ?
Thanks, Hannah. And yes, so absolutely. So thing to think about with using Weel cards overseas is most countries nowadays pretty well tap and go acceptance is fine. So countries, New Zealand, it would be very uncommon that they would not accept Google and Apple Pay. So when they make the payment, it'll work. It'll be charged at a fee in line with Visa's currency of NZ to AUD at the time, plus our new 0.95% conversion. It'll appear as an AUD transaction with all fees within your Weel app. So look, NZ is a great example, absolutely will be fine. What are examples where Weel cards will not be accepted overseas? Countries like China and Singapore do not accept Google and Apple Pay currently, and this is where they will not work. We can use our reimbursement tool, but exactly why we are getting physical cards, and once they are live, you're going to be able to use our Weel cards anywhere. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
And I think that answers the follow-up question, which was when from Nanda, who said, when you have a physical card, will that also work in NZ? Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Good news there. Look, what I might do, because I can see the chat there's been a bit of back and forth and maybe a bit out of order. So I might just cover off some of these key questions again to make sure that we've captured the right answer. Okay, cool. So why is there a primary and secondary card for the one budget?
Might hand you to that one to answer, Katie. I think you got the.
Yeah, cool. So sorry, I'm trying to, I've got two screens going and the chat is running in both. But so why is there a primary and secondary card for the one budget? So it is a bit of a complex concept, but because we have, I guess, the card that will sit, and I think this relates, somebody else had a question about this, Ling as well. So the card that is the primary card is going to be linked whether you have a physical card or your in-store card wallet. Those card details will be the same, and we consider that to be the card that is used to tap and go. So realistically, you wouldn't want to use those card details if you're making, say, an online payment, you probably wouldn't want to sit there with your physical card or find your in-app card details to enter those online, because if you've entered those details, it's just going to trigger to pull from whichever budget you have connected at that point in time. So it doesn't give you the same control as if you're using those secondary budget card details for when you do need to enter card details. With that said, the reason why the primary card needs to have card details is because every card needs to have a card number and the associated details, expiry, CVN. So essentially, yes, it does have its own primary details, but the budget card details are the card number and CVN that you would want to be looking at if you're entering any card details, say online or wherever. How we've kind of plumbed it in the background is that primary card, as you're making that payment, will pull the details from whichever budget is connected at that point in time, and that's why that's considered to be the primary budget. So I'm losing the thread of my conversation. I do actually have my colleague Cece here who might be able to jump in as well if that's not making sense. Anything else to add, Cece? Just speak. Yeah.
So no, that I did catch the thread. But essentially, like the best way to think of the primary card is the primary card in your wallet. So when we launch physical cards, that same primary card will be your physical card as well as your card in your wallet. Think of your secondary cards as your budget. So that's how we manage the controls and manage your spend. So a budget obviously has been set at a limit, which you're comfortable at with that employee being able to spend on. So just think of it as a supplementary limit to be added to your primary card. And that is effectively how we control. So you'll see in your new cards page, you'll be able to link the card to the budget, and that's linking the secondary card to your primary card, so that means that now your primary card reflects the budget that's in your secondary card. It's just the way that we control the spend and make sure that everyone is only using the assigned budgets to their limits.
Perfect. Thanks, CC. I will continue because we've had a few more questions come through in both the chat and the Q&A. Andrea has asked, if I'm the administrator of our company and all subscriptions are in staff member names, can I have just one card created, titled something like subscriptions, and then set up all the staff subscriptions to come out of just this one subscriptions account?
Happy to answer. So you can set it up in this way, and I've seen businesses do it like that. And it's definitely not to say it's not the wrong method. The key consideration to think about, if you have one card set up, that one card will only appear in one place, so only one person will have access to the details that they can share. But also it opens up the same risks as the situation I described, where one director's card is being shared by lots of people for lots of subscriptions. There's more chance of fraud happening, and also if one card, one subscription, or there is any impact, every single subscription is impacted. So really the idea behind the tool is it's what you're describing to do, except split out in the individual way. So the person who owns that subscription has the card details. The card is only in line with what you'd expect, but you can revoke that card at any time and it doesn't impact anything else. So it kind of just, restructures the way you do things, but adds a number of benefits in line with like more control over each and visibility over each.
Thanks, Jake. We've also had a question come through from Tracy. So prior to the changes, if I transfer funds across, they would appear basically immediately. This doesn't happen now. It can be overnight until the funds appear. So if it's the first time you transfer, it does take a little while for the funds to appear the first time you're transferring into the account. However, if it's post that and you're seeing it with different payments, it's because the payments are being reviewed by our payment provider, NIAM. So it might, it's not something that will be ongoing. We do expect this to speed up with time, but it should be instant. It should be real time. So if there is any slight delay or longer time for that to come through, that's just what's happening on the background. It's just being reviewed to ensure it's the correct payment details, and it's the correct name and that it's the correct payment going through before it lands. But yes, as we kind of speed up that process with more, the more payments that we make, the faster that will come, and we do expect it to be real time, the same as it was before. Another question. So we've answered that one. Sorry, coming back. So is it possible for reimbursements to have a different approval process than cards? Also, is it possible for admin users to see all requests for increases and can approve in the absence of a budget approver?
So just going to find this one. So the answer, just going to try to find these questions. So the answer about can we have different people approve compared from cards to reimbursements? The answer is absolutely, via our workflows function. So I'll jump in and quickly maybe show you what that looks like, just in case you weren't across that. What was the second part of the question, Katie?
Is it possible for admin users to see all requests for increases and can approve in the absence of a budget approver?
That one, I am not 100% off the top of my head. I believe that admins can see all requests, but as to whether they can override or be alerted to it, I might have to help pass over to CC. So regarding the can we have different approvers for reimbursements as opposed to cards? So this is via our workflows tool. Please keep in mind this is available on our premium or above plans. So it would be worth chatting to an account manager if you are on this plan and you haven't seen this before. So this is where we can assign different workflows based on budget top-up requests to override the budget approver, where we can assign who approves what bills, as well as create separate workflows for reimbursement approval and after card expense reports are completed. So an example would be, we could say whenever reimbursement is coded, we could have one person approving all of them, for example. Or this is where we can create different approvers based on who submitted it, what budget it came from, so a group of people or an amount or a mixture. So for example, we could say on the sales team budget, the approver is James, but we can also add bigger limits for if the amount is greater than and lower than, for example, and then we could create a separate workflow for card expense reports afterwards and budget top-up requests. So this is essentially how we would override, and we can create multiple workflows to separate those out.
Cool. We are probably a little bit over time, but there's a couple more questions I just want to answer just because we've seen sort of consistent themes. So we've had, can you clarify when I tap, it charges my primary card and then I select the budget to allocate that expense to. So just confirming, the primary card will always need to be allocated to a budget. So the secondary card needs to be linked to the primary card prior to making that purchase. So as at the point of payment, it will pull from whichever budget is currently connected with that card. So I think that probably relates to another question we had around paying over the phone with a card number, in that you should be using the online card details for the budget that you want the funds to draw from. So I don't know why this is my only example. If it's a Woolworths order, say you've got a budget for staff amenities or whatever, you want to use that online card number to give over the phone or enter it online. Because if you use your primary card number, that will just pull from any budget that happens to be active at that point in time. You can't, so the linked budget needs to be done prior to purchase if you're making a payment in a bricks and mortar store. If you're making a phone purchase or an online purchase, you want to make sure you're using the online card details too, so that it's drawing directly from the intended budget. Cool. All right. I think we do have a few more questions in here, but we are unfortunately at time and we want to just be mindful of everyone else's time on the call here today. So we have captured all of these questions and we'll get back to any unanswered questions directly, and we can also share these answers in our follow-up for this session as well. But before we wrap, I guess from Jake and myself, we just wanted to say thank you so much for joining and for all of the engagement. This is really great to hear your questions and understand what we could be making clearer. I think, we're looking forward to doing a lot more of these types of sessions in 2024. So if you have any feedback around what you'd like to see more of or what we could have done differently, we'd be really open to it and love to hear it. So even if you just want to reply to the email that we send out following, that would be awesome. But look, thank you very much everyone for joining, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you.